Welcome to the Spencerport Central School District Board of Education meeting, Tuesday, May 24th, 2022. Would you please join me in the pledge the flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
Before we move on to the approval of the agenda, I'd like to speak about two items that are close to all of us. First of all, I'd like to speak about the school violence incident that happened today in Texas. What an unfortunate situation for that community, and our thoughts, our positive thoughts and support are with them at this difficult time. Also, I'd like to address the sudden and unexpected loss of physical education teacher at Leo Burnaby School, Mr. Kevin Mantell. Kevin was an outstanding teacher, coach, and a person that was loved by many staff and all staff members here in our district. He will be missed by all. So what I would like to do is just take a moment of silence to recognize both of these situations that unfortunately are a reality in our lives. Thank you very much. So could I please have someone make a motion to approve tonight's agenda? Motion to approve. Gary? Lori? All in favor? Oh, thank you. Okay, at this point in time, I'd like to call up Mr. Mike Miceli. As we know, Mr. Miceli ran for school board in our election a couple of weeks ago, and we are very, very fortunate and excited to have Mr. Miceli join our school board once again for another term to fill Mr. Hutton's position, 2 years and 44 days. So Mr. Miceli, on behalf of the board, welcome aboard. We're so glad you're here. So what I have here is your oath of allegiance. If you could please read this aloud.
I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge, according to the best of my ability, the duties and positions of member of the Board of Education, Spencerport Central School District.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. Thanks again, Mike. Appreciate your commitment to the district and to this learning community.
I'm privileged to be here. There's over 100 years of history here in Spencerport, and I just can't wait to get to work.
Awesome. We're glad to have you. Thank you. Okay. The next item on the agenda is approval of the results of the 2022-2023 budget vote. Thank you, Gary. Second. Lori, all in favor? 6-0. Thank you very much. Our next item is privilege of the floor. And during this time, members of the public may address the board. Remarks should be limited to 5 minutes. The board will listen to input, but not respond, except to refer any specific concerns to the superintendent for follow-up. Questions should be answered within a week if possible. If the speaker will please give your name, address, and phone number, the clerk will record this. So tonight we have one privilege of the floor speaker, and I would like for Mr. Donald Bardeen to please come up to the podium.
My name is Donald G. Bardeen. My phone number is 585-414-9987. I live at 6 Ridge Meadows Drive in Spencerport, New York. I'm primarily going to address the a letter that I received from Mr. Kincaid in response to my questions I asked at the 26th board meeting. And I have attached both his letter, my original questions, and other information, which I gave with the Marcy earlier. Let me start, though. I'm going to kind of veer off a little bit here. I want to mention something. I think I've been speaking here off and on for the last year or so, off and on different times, and without getting into the details of all that, one of the things I want to say is that I'm still struggling with trying to figure out how the community and everyone here can figure out how we're working on the same team. I'll give you an example. You have on your website board policy forward and philosophy statement. And so I'm not going to read it in detail. It lists a lot of different things, master skills. What's going to happen when somebody graduates from the Spencerport School District? What your goals are. How about that? I agree 100% with everything that's written here. Excellent. There's absolutely nothing wrong. So I think myself and a lot of people that you think are maybe at odds with things you're trying to accomplish here, we're not. So I totally agree with this. But however, let me come back to my original questions and the answer from Mr. Kincaid. One of the things as a positive thing, I think, I asked for whom, number one, I asked for whom does the school board work? And his response was the school board is a municipal body that oversees and manages the public school district's affairs, personnel, and properties. School board members are elected by the residents of the school district. So, congratulations. That's great. So I think what he's saying to me, and I agree with this, is what he's saying, that you work for the residents of the Spencerport School District. Is that a correct statement? Yeah, I know you won't respond to me. You don't have to send me a letter to tell me that. Can I make the assumption that's a correct statement? We agree on that? I'm sorry. Anyway, I'll assume that unless somebody tells me different. Regarding the state, how is the New York State funding for the Spencerport School District determined? There's an answer there. I'm not going to get into the details there. I have specific reasons for asking that question, and I probably didn't word it properly. That's what we'll deal with at a later time. I asked also, do parents or legal guardians have the final say concerning the education of children? And Mr. Kincaid responded with something very similar to Mr. Hutton that responded earlier. Parents, guardians certainly have and should educate their children outside of the school day, and the district welcomes input from parents, guardians regarding their children's needs. During the school day, the district is operating in line with its policies, practices, state and federal laws and regulations governing education. And my question was, do parents or legal guardians have the final say concerning the education of the children? I'll be honest with you, when I read that, I'm not sure that I got a direct answer. If I were to interpret what's written there, the only interpretation I could give was that the school board feels that it's not, parents do not have the final say in the education of their children, that the state does, or the Board of Education does, or the Spencerport School District does. And I totally disagree with that. If you're welcome to respond to me, but I don't know if you're going to respond to me or not on that question again and respond to what I'm saying tonight, but I don't understand that. If you're saying that you or the school board or the school board or the district or the state education department has the final say regarding our children's education, I disagree with that. I believe the parents still do what we should have. If you disagree with that, you may respond to me and explain to me why I'm wrong. That's one thing that we disagree on. I also asked, how does the Spencerport School District determine the culture of the student? And the answer was district staff members build relationships with students and seek their input in order to better understand and embrace their cultures in our ever-changing global community. That's an answer, but I'm not sure it really addresses the question. I think a word that everyone is concerned or afraid to talk about is race relations. And I think this really has a lot to do with what we're doing. I have a basic, and I've said this, let me read my statement that Mr. Kincaid was responding to. After the 4 questions, I said, you asked about my direction of views. I'm referring to Mr. Hutton's letter back on March 8th. And I wrote, I do not believe that our country or the Constitution, which you just swore an oath to, by the way, and everyone else did. I do not believe that our country or the Constitution on which it is founded is systemically racist. Now, you may agree with me or disagree with me. I'd like to know, if you want to respond to that, please respond. If you don't, I guess you won't.
Mr.
I
Bardine,
also believe that.
Mr. Bardine, just to let you know, you have 1 minute. And I want to make sure you get your talking
Okay,
points in.
let me just question something. I'll stop. I don't need to speak anymore tonight. But that's an interesting comment. Because I have a 5-minute limit because each speaker has 5 minutes to speak, but the board allots for 3 speakers, which is 15 minutes. And if I heard correctly, sometimes my hearing's not so correctly there if I'm wrong. There's no other speaker besides me, so you've allotted 15 minutes. And if I go over by a minute, I'm sorry, but I won't. I'll leave now. And I'll be back, and I have a lot more to discuss with the board. One of the things I'm working on real hard right now is figuring out how we had such poor, how we have, and I'm not blaming you, by the way. I know you reach out in different ways, for comments from here and from other places for years about people don't have any faith in their votes anymore. I don't think they can make a difference. And I think we need to work on changing that. I'm working right now outside of the district and all around the county and working with other people, trying to figure out how we communicate better as a community and get more people involved. I think everyone in this community should be involved in this school district. I really do. And I don't believe everybody feels the same way I do about anything. And I don't believe I feel the same way about them on anything. We need to figure out ways to communicate and build a better system here. I believe there's a fundamental flaw. I'll say this real clearly, and I'm not going to discuss it. I'm not going to respond to it. There's a fundamental flaw with the New York State framework, the CRSE. I really do. And I would love to have some kind of community event where we can sit down and talk about that. And I understand it's got to be civil, and I've talked to other people. I won't say anything here. I'll talk to people here. If we're having a meeting and someone's not handling themselves civilly, let's remove them and get on to things. I have a problem with that. Okay, I'm gone for tonight, and you have a good day.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. And this part of our agenda for students that we have here tonight, this part of the agenda, there's many appointments that are approved by the board in advance. We see the information is sent to us in advance. We go through the information, a lot of business items that we don't necessarily have to discuss at the table. So we read through the consent agenda items. And then if we have any questions, we can ask them here at the table if we need clarification. And what we do at this point is we ask for someone to make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Mike? Second? Any further questions or thoughts about the consent agenda? All in favor? 6-0. Thank you very much. I'd like to turn it over to Superintendent Swan to discuss some of the items that we approved in tonight's consent agenda.
So one of the special items in our agenda today were the appointments of our assistant principals starting for next year's school year. So I'm going to ask if Tom Berger and if Jamie Hill-Dotery will please stand up. Tom and Jamie will be joining our middle school. I want to officially welcome you, and I know that you will just bring a wealth of instructional knowledge and wonderful energy to the middle school. And so welcome aboard and congratulations tonight. We also want to invite Jennifer Westman to stand up. Jennifer is our new administrator at the senior high. Jennifer comes to us having been an administrator at Greece Odyssey. And so again, Jennifer brings lots of talents to our school district. I think is really going to nicely round out our administrative team at the high school. And I want to welcome you aboard as well.
Thank you.
I just want to say welcome to all three of you. Welcome to Ranger Country. We're very excited to have you as part of our administrative team here in Spencerport. You're going to find that we have some incredible students here in our district and incredible people that you're going to partner with all along the way. So we're looking forward to your positive journey and your contributions to our students and to our district. Thank you so much for being here tonight, and congratulations. Okay, moving on to our Board of Education report. So just a few items here, just to get caught up. So I want to first of all say congratulations and a big thank you to our Spencerport community for our successful budget vote this year. I just incredibly respect that partnership we have with our community to continue to support the education that we provide to our students here in Spencerport. So thank you again to our Spencerport learning community for supporting our spending plan for next year. Also, a big congratulations to Megan Sarkis, Gary Bracken, and Mike Miceli for being elected to the school board. So congratulations to all of you as well. The last couple of weeks, I've been attending the facilities task force meetings where we are looking at the building condition survey for the district and looking at some operational needs and prioritizing what we think we want to do for our next capital project. So that has been a great thorough process. The conversations at the tables have been outstanding, and looking at the data from the building condition survey and turning that into conversation and prioritizing what we think we need to do moving forward has been very exciting. And I just want to thank all of you that have, Rick, Kristen, putting all that together. And I know Jonathan and Darren have been a big part of that as well. And just thank you for your participation with that. We had a district safety committee meeting this afternoon. Just a few of our updates, some updates with finishing installing some of the new cameras, and the feedback that we heard at that meeting was just how incredible they're working so far. So we're very excited about that. Some discussions about the safety plan and the code of conduct proposed changes, which we'll be hearing about in June. And just some basic district updates. And we talked about the facilities task force as well, which I've already spoke about. A few items on the horizon. Okay, next Tuesday is our board retreat development meeting. So I think everybody's RSVP to that already. So thank you for doing that. Tomorrow we have the Monroe County School Board Association annual meeting. That'll be tomorrow evening. And then our Board of Education meeting on June 7th. Don't forget our retirees reception is at 6:15. And then the board meeting will follow immediately after that. So our board meeting will probably start around 7 o'clock, but the retirees reception is at 6:15 in this room right here. And the final thing is, if you're available and you haven't RSVP'd yet, our Fireman's Parade concession stand is on June 9th. All right, that's a great opportunity for all of us to support our partners in the fire department for so much that they do for our Spencerport community. So we're slated to work from about 5 o'clock to 7:30 when the firemen and the explorers finish their parade route. So that's about all I have for now. I'm going to take a breath now and breathe.
Just real quick, if you do that, firemen's wear your own baseball hat, and not get aware of one of their paper hats. I don't know what to do.
Right.
Definitely wear hats.
Gary?
You already did the MCSBA thing, so.
Okay.
Well,
I'll give a shout out again to our music department. There are so many end of year concerts, both instrumental and choral concerts. And every time I attend one of these events, I'm just so amazed by what our teachers have been able to do with these students during COVID, at times when they had to be distanced 12 feet and wearing masks and unable to really have that hands-on instruction. It's so nice to see all the performing groups back and doing such an incredible job of it. It just really makes me proud.
Thank you.
And the high school will be having its award ceremony this week on Thursday. So I look forward to attending that.
yeah, I think so.
Mike? David? Awesome. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Now we're going to turn it over for our superintendent's report.
Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
I'm going to invite Ty up as he gets ready to present on work that we've been doing in regards to our K-12 homework policy and practices. But just a bright spot that I'd like to share as well. I just came from the Unified basketball game, and Gary was there as well. And it's just a reminder that there are wonderful things going on every moment of every day on this campus, and just a lot of fun to celebrate with that tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Swan. So good evening. Really appreciate this opportunity to provide you an update on the work that our K-12 homework committee completed. You'll find that momentarily we actually split into two different groups. We met K-5 and we also met 6-12, just knowing that there's some different interests based on age appropriateness. During our first meeting with this group, with each group rather, we had 3 different items that we really wanted to set the stage. First and foremost, we asked committee members just to leave their personal bias at the door. We started off just discussing our philosophy and experiences with homework, but it was really important that everyone understood that the role really is to come up and generate a recommendation for Ms. Swan's consideration. The other piece too is that we wanted to look at board policy 8440, which really technically tonight will be your first read. You'll see here just with our different committee members, you'll notice that we have teachers, related service providers, parents from each building, and administrators, both at the building level and district level. This was consistent for both the K-5 committee and also the 6-12 committee as well. Mrs. Polini served as a co-facilitator with me, and we just kind of provided this information to our constituents and allowed them to really generate ideas based on the prompts that they've provided. So really what you see tonight is the fruit of the committee's work. The format of the homework committee really was just to, once again, take a look at and seek feedback on board policy 8440. Then also really just to discuss the rationale when it comes to homework that we administer to our students here in Spencerport, the different types of homework, our expectations, and what occurs during academic breaks. You'll see here, as I provided to the board previously, just really some of the work that we looked at with the original board policy. Here's a cleaner version of where it stands right now in terms of the first read based on these changes right here. From there, we talked about rationale. You heard me mention every individual, whether it's a parent, teacher, administrator, related service provider, all have an interpretation of homework. We came to the conclusion that homework is really about providing that, really strengthening that partnership between home and school. We feel like it's an authentic way to foster that connection and a way to communicate what the child is doing during the confines of the school day. We feel it's important that we provide students independent opportunities that really allows them to strengthen their understanding and knowledge of whatever concept or content that they might be studying. The committee decided on different types of homework. You'll see here just 6 different examples. There's 2 additional ones for at the secondary level, just based on the age and appropriateness of the students involved. Then we talked about guidelines, and keep in mind, when we look at the academic guidelines for K-5, you'll see these daily suggested guidelines in terms of what we expect for our kindergarten through 7th grade students and what we expect from our 3rd to 5th grade students. This is something that teachers obviously had a strong voice, strong opinion in terms of the work. But one of the things that we really wanted to ensure is that there's consistency from building to building, even within the same grade level. So if there's 3 teachers who are teaching 3rd grade in one of our elementary schools, we want them to really subscribe to the same approach to ensure that they're meeting the needs and that there's not, one student in one classroom is receiving whatever guideline and another teacher is not assigning any homework whatsoever. We're really trying to adhere our teachers to these guidelines to ensure that this occurs.
Did you get any feedback from parents on those guidelines?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had 4 elementary parents who served on this.
Yeah.
They thought this was fair and reasonable.
Good.
I think one of the pieces that they shared is, even if it's within a week, so if you have some work that needs to be completed by by Friday, knowing that Monday night might be soccer practice or religion or whatever it might be, families have busy schedules and you need to be respectful of that as well. We don't want homework to take away from family time, but at the same time, we're trying to build that foundation to ensure that our students are set up for success as they make that transition from 5th to 6th grade.
Hey, Ty, when, I know we had teachers on these panels and stuff. How were they going back and getting a larger amount of feedback from the others? Basically so that they can get teachers to adhere to these and stuff. What was the feedback loop on that stuff?
So parts of the committee, members of the committee, if I was to go back to the slide, you'll see the representatives from the different schools. We share with them, they're representing their colleagues in whatever building they may be from. We also worked with our team leaders, both K2, 3, 5, and our teacher leaders, 6, 12, and art, music, and phys at K-12, and allowed them to weigh in on these conversations soon. So they provided us feedback, and then they reported back to their colleagues. So we felt like after we tried to space out the meetings with enough time where teachers, to speak to their colleagues, preparation for the next meeting, so they can provide us feedback based on what they may have discussed, during common planning time, during lunch.
Thanks.
So this feels to me like you're really trying to add more consistency, because when I read through what the guidelines were, I'll be honest, it didn't look like much had changed, because my own students had experienced something very similar to what's on this paper. But it sounds like the concern is that there may be outliers in the district who were doing something different and maybe more excessive, and we're just trying to bring everybody to a
Stealing
similar.
my thunder at the end, yes.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm joking. So, yes, we're trying to look for consistency. And I
Okay.
think that's the other piece too, that, when I presented this and I worked with our K2 and 3-5 team leaders, they shared, this isn't really that much different from what we've done in the past.
Okay.
However, they also would understand that some of their colleagues, there are outliers. And so we want to ensure that there is consistency,
Okay.
because we want to implement this with fidelity. In terms of the 6-12 level, I think part of the work that we're doing at the high school and then at the end of June with our middle school really deals with equitable grading as we're looking to refine our grading practices. And I think this is a really good precursor to some of this work. So for example, homework should have minimal impact on the child's grade, right? We really believe that grading should reflect what a student knows and understands. It shouldn't be about compliance. And so I think with that shift, some individuals would just nod their head and say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I currently do that. Other individuals, that may be foreign to them. And so we really are working with our teachers across the district just to ensure that as we look at our equitable grading philosophy and our practice, we really need their help with this. So we've generated a 3-year plan at the high school, and we're working on a similar plan at the middle school, because we need to have some consistency once students leave 5th grade, knowing what to predict and what to expect.
At the 6 to 12 level, do we expect that there will still be room for teachers who want to use a flipped classroom model to do that? Okay.
Yeah, and I think, if I was to go back to right here as well, we talked about the flipped approach with the different types of homework too,
Okay.
knowing that it could be in preparation
Yep.
for the lesson. That's where that really falls. I think that's a really good point. My apologies for not mentioning that. I think in terms of personalized learning experience, that's something that we're really trying to promote at the secondary level, knowing that each individual is unique. And I think when the term differentiated instruction versus personalized learning experience, student A learns differently than student B. And I think we need to provide students opportunities, different opportunities to really demonstrate what they know and what they understand. And it can go beyond just that traditional test or homework. It could be them creating something. So we really need to embrace that, and that's part of our journey that we're working on as well. The other piece too, I think this aligns really well to what Ms. Stone shared in terms of we want members of a specific grade or department to be consistent in their homework, their approach with homework. I think the other piece too is that we really want, with this homework committee and our work, you'll see just kind of where we go from here. We need to revisit it because we're going to make some changes in the 2023-24 school year, so it aligns with our equitable grading practices that I previously discussed. So the committee will get together once again, just say, how did this go? What changes should we be making? What are some of the challenges that we encountered? Just so we can seek that feedback as well. I think this is the big one here. In terms of academic breaks, we really believe strongly for both K5, K5 and 6-12, sorry, that should say K12, where holidays and recess periods really should be that. It should be a break from academic work, but you'll see there just in terms of by the district calendar, right? So a family may be on vacation this week, but that doesn't necessarily align to our district calendar. I think the other piece too, where we really received a lot of head nodding and approval, is avoiding tests once students return from a break. So for example, over April break, that Monday when we return, they're not assigning a test right away.
So this is K-12.
This is K-12, yeah, my apologies. This is K-12. I think the last piece then, just you heard me mention, we presented this to Ms. Swan for her consideration. We then present for policy 8440 as a first review this evening. And then, our work, what I share with team and teacher leaders, once we present it to the Board of Education, we'll then start to hand out and distribute, those protocols that you received in news and notes.
Just a couple questions. Is there a minimum amount of homework assigned? So there still could be, there could be somebody who assigns no out of the classroom or theoretically. Okay. And is there a concern that by not having homework graded, having a minimal impact on grade, that you're going to see a decrease in academic performance?
I think there's a concern that students won't be compliant, and that without being compliant, that may have a direct impact on their academic performance.
They won't complete the homework
Correct.
since it's not being graded,
Correct.
therefore.
Have we thought-
I'm sorry, no.
I was just gonna say, at the high school level, have we thought about how that will impact people in terms of either college readiness or career readiness and, you know, being prepared for the day and learning how to take on that personal responsibility?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was part of the conversation that we had in terms of, we want to present students with rigorous learning opportunities. And with those rigorous learning opportunities, there's certain requirements that students have to complete outside of school in order to be prepared for, let's say, whatever assessment or whatever class in order to be successful in. So I think there's that balance where we're still keeping, and we had one of the parents that we had on here happens to be an individual who's affiliated with college admissions. And I'm sure on July 1st, you'll get to know a little bit better. So she was really helpful in that too, just kind of sharing some of the trends that she's seen at the post-secondary level. I don't know if I answered your question. I'm sorry.
I was just sort of building off of Leah's point that if we have students who are putting an effort in because they know they're not receiving a score on it, do we think that homework assignments will eventually not be taken seriously and just not be completed?
I don't know about that, to be perfectly honest with you. I think when we look at our 3-year plan for equitable grading, a test shouldn't define a student. We should be providing students other opportunities, additional opportunities to really kind of demonstrate what they know, what they understand. So that similar to like you take a driver's test. I could only imagine how many people are driving right now that failed the driver's test for the first time, yet they're given an opportunity to take it again. My daughter, perhaps she shouldn't have been given a license because of her habits. So I think, in terms of with homework and grades, we want to provide opportunities for students to demonstrate what they know. And how do you do that? Through assessment. What types of assessments are we providing? I think that's the work that we're really kind of cultivating here in Spencerport. Knowing that a formative assessment should just do that, inform instruction, so that if there's a gap, the teacher can personalize that learning experience for that student to bridge that gap. If homework has to be assigned, if homework's not completed, I think that's no decision that teachers need to make here with the student. Maybe went back to the protocols too, the rationale, some of the guidelines. Students have ample opportunity at the secondary level to work directly with the teacher. They have advisement, they have activity period. Majority of those times are perfect opportunities for students to work with the teacher. It's also the teacher's responsibility to work with the student. So for some reason, if I'm a physics teacher, Mr. Kincaid's in my classroom and he's struggling with a certain concept of physics, it's my responsibility to schedule a time with him, perhaps after school during activity period, for me to provide that necessary support. It has to be a two-way street. And that's part of the thing that we're trying to teach our students in terms of career readiness, their responsibility, their ability to self-advocate.
Right.
I think the term you use, Ty, is homework will have a minimal impact on the student's grade. It doesn't mean no impact, right? So homework's still gonna be graded. It's just not gonna, it's not to do it.
Yeah, I think we're really trying to focus in on us with our grading practices, what students know. Not completing 20, questions at night, but really what they know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to me, it's all about the work you're giving anyway, right? So if you were assigning work
Yeah.
just because it was
Yeah.
work,
Yeah.
then that didn't have any utility to begin with. If we were just giving people practice they didn't need. So to me, it's not much different than all of it's not much different than what you would kind of hope was happening, right? That you weren't assigning work just to have be busy work, or that it was always in preparation. I do think that when you start looking at things like a flipped classroom, you know what I mean, at the, above 12th grade at the university level, there's a lot of professors that do that. And sometimes what we're seeing is with younger students coming in, that preparation before, if you aren't prepped before, your discussion during can't happen, right? So then you're missing that part. So I'm assuming that there will be period of transition.
Absolutely, and I think too,
Yeah.
the academic guidelines, both the K-5 and the 6-12, the parents that were on that committee, they're strongly opposed just busy work.
Right, yes, me too.
And that's what they shared. It has to be meaningful, and you'll see the word authentic or real world connection, or there's real purpose behind that homework. We're not just assigning homework for the sake of assigning homework. There has to be a connection to the learning task.
If it was my middle schooler was coloring, I was thinking the same thing, like, you know, it's not what you want them to be spending their time on. So I agree.
I gotta be honest with you, this is, you did a great job, and this is a work in progress. Clearly, this is gonna evolve, but this is long overdue, because I recognize my son graduated in 2019, as well as my son today, that even across different teams within Cosgrove, there's different policies and perspectives, even within the same team, but different instructors, there's different policies and perspectives on homework. So you can just tell by the chatter between the kids. So this is long overdue. Thank you.
And I really envision me working with Ms. Swan and during the 22-23 school year, providing you an update on our work with the 6-8 and 9-12 when it comes to our equitable reading practice and some of the changes that we're going to be proposing. And some of those changes can be really, foreign to our families, and that's why we have to do a really good job of explaining the rationale why we're making this move. So, for example, it'd be moving away from the 0 to 100 scale. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next time.
Next time.
Really appreciate it.
Jonathan to come up. Review our 7,000 and 8,000 series of policies.
I was honestly hoping this would drop.
Thank you everyone for having me. Welcome back, Mr. Miceli.
I do.
So with this group of policies, there's a couple 6,000, 7,000, 8,000. Not many questions. There was one question that Ms. Stone had about the conference travel. We do have a regulation on that. Actually, a little difficult to find.
So it's a school district
It is a
regulation. not-
2006 school district regulation that we would work to update as we continue with Erie One voces for the administrative manual and any changes with respect to travel and things. But we do have protocols in place.
Direct all questions to Rick Wood.
This has been.
I wanted to know if there was an IRS rate or a school
No,
district
no,
rate.
it's
definitely a school district
Said
regulation.
regulation.
This is a
Lord,
thing.
Lord.
It's been a thing
Just go
for
after it.
a while
Just answer.
now about teachers having a room together and all those other things that go with the travel
Just-
stuff.
well,
So,
I could feel the electric.
yeah, there's been a thing.
We do use IRS rates for mileage reimbursement. So
Oh,
there is a
that's
little
good.
there is a little crossover. There is a little crossover. We could go less. We don't have to do IRS.
Can we? Next.
The other questions that Ms. Sonia had about acceptable use policy. So just a quick consultation with our IT department. The term acceptable use policy is kind of becoming the industry
Okay,
standard.
that's fine.
And that's what, I mean, when I was online today, I mean, and any website that I went to, whether federal government or New York State, it referenced acceptable use policy.
Okay,
I
so people will know what that policy works.
I think
That's fine.
if not, we need to educate everyone, both students and staff, that is where the policy will be found.
Okay.
Jamie and I were talking today a little bit about, we'll have to start the discussions about rollout and implementation of all the policies that, and that we can emphasize that the locations of that are either with Corey's department or on the website.
Okay.
Hey, Jonathan, we have an opportunity sometime between now and the next meeting. Could you please reshare?
Sure.
Because it's in a different board notebook than it's not in the board notebook. The
Oh, the policy
policies,
notebook,
the policy
separate.
notebook. So if I could get access, that'd be great. Thank you.
I will work to do that.
It may not be your responsibility, but
No,
I know I can't do it.
I just realized I need to consult with the technology department because that one note was created by Mr. Lincoln. So that raises a different question.
Yeah.
But
Thank you.
we'll figure that out.
Yeah, I noticed it's separate from the Board of Ed folder,
Yes.
so I don't know.
Two other questions with respect to the staff acceptable use policy. One was about portable drives. We have, that is being implemented here in the district. And then I know it's limited for administrators right now, but it'll also be implemented next year for teachers and some other staff.
Implemented that they should not use portable drives.
That they can actually turn a switch and turn it off. So you can't use them on the computer.
Okay.
That's standard.
If that answers your question. Yes, so it will be implemented so that everything will be online.
Yes, right. Nobody will be walking around with a portable drive that's got confidential information on it.
There will be limited uses.
Okay.
There are certain parts of things like the transportation videos and other discrete circumstances where there needs to be some USB drive access,
Okay.
but there will be approval going through the technology department. So there are controls on it.
Okay.
And the last one. Your question about definition of confidential or private data. So we did pass the board passed the Ed Law 2D policy.
Okay.
I think 2020, and that has a significant number of definitions that really encompasses everything that this policy was kind of referencing. This policy used generalized terms, but all the definitions for the confidential data are in the Ed Law 2D policy.
Does this policy then need to refer to any of those definitions? You know,
I'm going to rely on hopefully Erie One BOCES because they don't know our numbering system.
Okay.
At the bottom of the policies, there's often a quick cross-reference to other policies.
Yep.
But because some of our policies have different numbers, hopefully they can make those cross sections work so we're not sending people in the wrong direction.
Okay, sounds good.
What was the last one? So we had one other question from Ms. Brown about the policy on political partisanship activities in the school. So this was a policy that was a Spencerport only policy. There really isn't one from Erie One. So I don't have any guidance to answer your question. The
Okay.
lawyer on me wants to say it depends. So
Yeah.
when I talked it over with Jamie, because it really pertains to her area of expertise, we thought that sending it to our attorneys would be the best avenue. Because it is a complicated question, giving National Labor Relations Act, PERB decisions, Taylor law.
What was the question?
What are, if any, the limitations on employee speech when it comes to
The
putting forth a position on a collective bargaining agreement
policy read that
in the school?
about collective bargaining in relation to students. So the question was, how is our policy in line with what's allowed among freedom of speech among staff? Because there would be some, it's complicated.
The short answer is it's a minefield.
It is, there are limitations that districts can impose with respect to, political buttons advocating for one candidate or other. Once you start getting into, collective speech by unionized members or limitations thereon, it does become a minefield. And that language is from 1999. So a good 20 years of court decisions and other laws have transpired since then. So that's why I think sending it to the attorneys would get a better result.
I would,
Enforcement is
that.
problematic too.
Yes, because then you end up in lawsuits or other things for
PERB charges.
just, it could be anything.
and if it wasn't, my point is that if it's not within realm, then we should remove that statement as well.
Right, if we're not.
Yes,
we're not gonna-
if
well, if we're not
it
gonna do
comes
anything
back
about
that we
it.
shouldn't have it,
Yeah.
we can remove that from the policy definitely. I think that was all the questions I had. This time I did check the OneNote. I didn't receive any. Yeah. No other questions, then I think we're all set. All right, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, finance or financial report.
you, Kristen. On the revenue side, just want to point out two items. One, we received the rest of the property tax, the delinquent taxes. But more importantly, I just want to highlight that Nicole had made the adjusting entry so that we're actually recording the amount from the federal stimulus as a one-time revenue into the general fund. This was to capture what was the, I'm going to air quote, lost revenue through transportation based on their decision of when certain things ended. So that being said, we're about 1.4% more than what we had budgeted when you not factor in the use of reserves. On the expense side, again, very difficult to gauge at this point. We did try to take it through 515 and not 430 because 515 included the adjustments that were made to the non-unit salary. So it gave me a little bit better picture. Again, looking to be a little under budget here, but things are changing on a daily basis. Every time I think I have a savings in one area, I see an increase in another. So this is really going to be right up until the end as we make adjustments to the federal stimulus as well. But at the end of the day, we are looking to have a surplus as of right now, based on the numbers and the information I've reviewed, of about $701,000. Any questions on the general fund? You shaking your head? You have questions?
You might answer my questions.
As it relates to school lunch, again, just very difficult to compare apples to apples. On the expense side, we're looking at expenses through April. On the revenue side, we've only recorded payments through February. So I can share with you in March, we had close to $300,000 in revenue through the federal and state reimbursement. So that blows these numbers out of the water. Again, as I mentioned last month, we are looking to have a surplus. We're working with our external auditors to see how best to apply that surplus. It may be purchasing things now that Gary's in need of. It may be taking a hit on the audit, knowing that we're over what allowable amount of fund balance is, but knowing that historically speaking, we're anywhere from $125,000 to $225,000 in the red. So if we have a plan, I think we'll be fine. But again, working through all of that with our external auditors as we.
Is there some kind of balance that can be had that, get Gary things that he needs, but still keep some,
Yeah, that's
back up?
met with Gary and Jonathan today.
Okay.
And they've put together a list of needs.
Yeah.
So now it's just a matter of, okay, is it a material and supply? Is it a service? They have different purchasing guidelines that I need to review. We have to really still try to identify what the actual surplus will be.
Yeah.
And again, not having all of that information makes it rather difficult, but we're trying to do a balance both here.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect.
And then just real quickly, again, similar to what we did on the general fund side, we had allocated expenses using federal stimulus money that were applied to school lunch. So Nicole brought that over in as a revenue. So you're seeing some of that as well. Any questions on either general fund or school lunch?
Okay, then I need someone to make a motion to accept the financial report.
I have one question before we go.
Sure.
So on the revenue side,
Mhm.
1 point. Right. 1.4 revenue in lieu of taxes. Been hovering about 1.25 million. Looks like it's gonna be about the same. Is that, it's on page. That's helpful. Page 2.
Yep. So you're looking at pilots.
Yeah, look at the pilots.
Mhm.
What status are we with the pilots for the Amazon buildings that are within our district, as well as for the solar farms? Because I know that was something before my 9-month vacation that we were exploring, and we were waiting to see what parties come to the table and which do not. Because I know that in the capology of our tax cap, pilots are critical.
So for the solar,
Okay.
remember we had, we were already have an agreement in place with the Norbit. solar
Correct.
farm. Those are sort of
Yep.
done.
That's done.
We, at a prior meeting, the board approved us entering into a pilot agreement with Delaware River.
Perfect.
So we're working through finalizing those. That should probably take effect in the upcoming school year.
Okay.
A little bit too late in preparation of, an approved budget already, but it's not a large dollar amount that's gonna influence the tax cap.
Mhm.
Now, the payment in lieu of tax for Amazon. So again, if the board remembers, I did speak to the town of Gates assessor on that. We thought it was going to play an impact this year. It will not.
Okay.
Because he hasn't done sort of a full assessment on the work that is at the facility.
Mhm.
So that will occur in the 23-24
So that's gonna,
budget. Yeah. So again, like what you probably didn't hear was in the upcoming assessments, we're going to see a very large assessment because it's not on payment in lieu of tax.
Mhm.
The following year, that's coming off the tax roll, and you're going to see it on the pilot. That will have an impact on the tax cap calculation.
so we have to plan ahead because we're gonna have a loss of revenue year over. We'll talk later.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a change in the revenue stream.
Okay.
I mean, because it's part of the assessments,
Yeah.
which impacts the tax rate.
Exactly.
So you're dropping the assessment, but you're picking up some of the payment in lieu of tax. So it's that differential.
Yeah, we're gonna lose, okay, I mean, be careful with my choice of words. We're gonna lose some revenue, but we're gonna gain help back on the tax cap side.
Yeah.
Okay, that's upcoming then.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's it. We're good.
Any other further questions or comments? Okay, can I have someone make a motion to accept the financial report? Gary, second. Michael, all in favor? 6-0. Thank you. Meeting evaluation.
Any meeting under an hour?
Yeah. We got through some business pretty quick. Just,
Nice
once
to see
again,
the new assistant principals.
yeah, I was gonna say congratulations to our new staff members. Really looking forward to them getting on board and moving on and putting their work together at high school and middle school. It'll be a good thing. Anything else, anybody?
I make a motion that we enter executive session for the purpose of discussing the employment history of a particular person.
Second, good. All in favor? So.